Now we'll discuss chapter 3, fiber to fabric. So first of all, what do you mean by fiber and what do you mean by fabric? Fiber means the threads which you're obtaining from either a plant source or from the animal source, and later on after you process it, it becomes fabric. So fabric is the cloth obtained from the fiber after they are processed. So we'll start with this small introduction. Many fibers are obtained from plants and animals. For example, cotton, jute, they are obtained from plants. Similarly, wool, silk, etc., they are obtained from animals. So in this chapter, we are going to focus more on animal fibers, especially wool and silk. So we'll start with wool. So first of all, what is wool? Wool is the hair which is collected from various animals like sheep, goat, yak and some other animals. So they have lots of hair on their bodies, so which can be removed by us and then after processing them for our human applications. So there are lots of varieties of wool because there are different kinds of sheep available in different parts of the world. Australia is a country which is famous for its wool. Lots and lots of wool are produced from Australia. So even India has a pretty good amount of wool production. The wool which is commonly available in India are mainly from sheep and goats, which are available in the hilly areas. So wool is common in Tibet and Ladakh. Tibet is in China, Ladakh is in India. Angora wool, there's a particular wool known as Angora wool, is obtained from Angora goats, which are found in the state of Jammu and Kashmir in India, and they're also found in other hilly regions. So that's why wool is quite common in these areas. And apart from this, Pashmina shawls or fine shawls obtained from goat hair found in Jammu and Kashmir, India. So apart from sheep hair, even goat hair can be used for processing wool, but they will be of a fine quality, like they won't be thick compared to the sheep wool. They will like their wool will be fine in quality. And the fur, or also known as hair, on the body of other animals like camels, llamas and alpacas, which are mainly found on the continent of South America, they can also be used for making wool. So the fur or hair on the body of other animals like camels, llamas and alpacas also yield wool. So in this way, wool can be obtained from certain animals on a regular basis. Now we'll study this topic from fibers to wool. So the topic is from fibers to wool. So for obtaining wool, what needs to be done? We need sheep. We need to rear them, we need to help them grow, mature, and then only we can obtain high quality wool from them. Then upon reaching their maturity, the hair from the sheep is cut and then processed into wool. So that's why we have several breeds of sheep depending on the quality of the wool which we need. So that's why rearing and breeding of sheep is done over different parts of the world. There are several breeds of sheep available on the Indian subcontinent, including India and the surrounding neighboring countries as well. Certain examples of sheep breeds which are available on the Indian subcontinent are Lohi sheep breed, Rampur Bushehr, Nali, Bakarwal, Marwadi, Patanwadi, etc. So these are the few examples of the various sheep breeds available on the Indian subcontinent. Like I mentioned earlier, their quality of wool also differs because based on the particular sheep variety, the quality of the wool obtained from them will also slightly differ from each other. So that's why before processing wool, we need to be specific about the quality of the sheep, the breed of the sheep which we need to rear so as to obtain a particular variety of wool. So now we'll study the various steps involved in processing the wool fibers into wool. Step 1 is shearing. So shearing is the process of removal of the fleece or the thick coat of hair from the sheep is known as shearing. So the next step is after shearing. Step 2 is scouring. Scouring is the process of thoroughly washing the sheared fleece of wool hair in tanks to remove the various impurities like dirt, etc., either manually or with machines. Then step 3 is sorting out. the hairy skin is sent to a factory where hair of different textures are separated or sorted out. So this process is known as sorting. So step 4 is the separation of burrs or removal of the burrs. So step 5 is dyeing. So coloring the fibers, also known as dyeing of the fibers into various colors, is the 5th step in the processing of the fibers into wool. Then the next step, step 6, is the fibers are then straightened out, combed and rolled into yarns for further processing of the material. So this is the final step in processing fibers into wool. So in this way, the yarns of wool are obtained from the wool fibers. When the yarns of these fibers are ready, they are sold in the markets. Then afterwards, the consumers can process them according to their needs. If it's a wholesale retailer, they buy the wholesale yarns and they process into their factories into various woolen sweaters or various woolen clothes. There's an important note which has to be mentioned over here. These people who work in the woolen industries, they have an occupational hazard of contracting certain diseases like anthrax because you are dealing with animals like sheep, goat, etc. So these animals, they are susceptible to certain microorganisms which can cause diseases like anthrax in them. Naturally, when the workers working on these infected sheep or contract this disease, this anthrax disease, this is a major occupational hazard, the employees working in the woolen industry. However, with proper precautions and safety measures, this occupational hazard can be easily overcome. Now we'll study the next topic, which is fiber known as silk. So first of all, what is silk? Silk is also an animal fiber just like wool. So the silk fiber is obtained from silkworms. So sericulture is the art of rearing of silkworms for obtaining silk. Now we'll study this topic, life history of silk moth. So first of all, the female silk moth lays lots of eggs, hundreds of eggs, and then after some time these eggs hatch into larvae, also called as caterpillars or silkworms. So after some time these silkworms, they grow in size and become pupae. Plural form is pupae, singular is pupa. This pupae, they produce silk fibers at this stage and covers itself completely with it. This covering is called cocoon. So a lot of cocoons are found at this stage. So the silk thread is then obtained from the cocoons of these silk moths and then processed into various silk yarns of different shapes and sizes as per the consumers or customers requirements. So in this way the silk is processed, and apart from this there are many different varieties of silk moths. For example, we have Tussar silk, we have Moonga silk, we have Kosa silk, etc. These are the examples of a few silk varieties. However, the most common silk moth which is widely used is, especially in our country India, is the Mulberry silk moth. So now we'll study this topic in detail, how the silk is processed from cocoon to silk. So first of all, like I mentioned earlier, female silk moths lays hundreds of eggs at a time. So these eggs are stored carefully under hygienic and at absolutely favorable temperature conditions as well. That's why we have a lot of silk farms. If you look at the silk farm area, it will be full of trees, especially the mulberry trees, because the larvae consume a lot of mulberry leaves before they become into pupae. So a lot of mulberry trees are grown so that they can be utilized by the larvae. They eat the leaves of the mulberry trees day and night and increase enormously in their sizes. And after 25 to 30 days of eating vigorously, then they stop eating the leaves of the mulberry trees, and then they convert themselves into pupae. And during the pupae stage, like I mentioned earlier, the cocoons are formed. When the cocoons are collected, there's an important process in between. This process is known as reeling the silk. Taking the silk threads from the cocoons is known as reeling the silk, because it's very hard to reel the silk manually. This is done by special machines which are manufactured for this purpose only. So then the cocoons are processed and silk is obtained from them. When you obtain the cocoons from the pupae, they are either heated by directly keeping or exposing the cocoons in the sun, It might take a few days. It depends. It might take a while. Or you can heat them or boil them in various containers. And then after the boiling process, you can collect those cocoons. So then the silk is then reeled, then spun into yarns by using various machines, and then they are sold in the markets in various shapes and sizes for customers or consumers purposes. And in this way we studied in this chapter the processing of wool and silk. So you can also do some Google search and learn a lot more regarding this topic, fiber to fabric. And if you have any doubts or suggestions, you can let us know in the comment section below. Thank you so much. Have a great day.